This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now.
Good morning, everybody. It is Monday, April 6th. I'm Tim Powers sitting in for this week of Open Line. Great to be with you. Hope you all had a good Easter weekend, and many of you are still enjoying the weekend. So I hope that means you'll give us a call, because, my goodness, there's lots to talk about. But before we get into that, how was your Easter? The weather makes it a bit challenging, but hey, it wouldn't be our province if there wasn't a little bit of a weather challenge. And as I joked this morning when I was doing a little bit with Jerry Lynn and Russell, yet again, some more weather coming, and we'll keep an eye on that. Whether it's rain or snow, we're yet to know. Didn't mean to turn it into a rhyme, but there you go. We'll pay attention to all of that for you, but it's been unrelenting. The weather this year. I was talking to Dave Neal from the Weather Office on the show I do in the afternoons here on VOCM, Tim Power Show. Give it a listen. And Dave was saying to me, as he has kindly said to me before, we got these little chunks. We got a couple of nice days, and we get some more weather. And the point Dave made that stuck with me was when we talked, I guess it would have been Thursday before the Good Friday long weekend, that we were we had nearly 500 centimeters of snow, and of course we all remember Snowmageddon. We got more then, but that next to Snowmageddon, that was one of the biggest snowfalls we have had over a winter in a while, and we could yet get some more. Though technically we're in spring. What do they say about spring? The grass has riz. Well, if you can see any grass under the snow and the wet, good for you. Good for you. Good optimism to have if you can see both those things. So weather, we'll keep on top of that. Also want a big shout out and two big happy birthdays to people the listeners will know. Roger and Peter Crosby just turned 90. The two twins, fraternal, have done so much in Newfoundland and Labrador and are still bringing us lots of joy and life. Celebrated it on Saturday at Rogers. Roger, of course, for years ran the Newfoundland and Labrador Margarine Company and did that with great effect. And Newfoundland and Labrador's history with margarine is, of course, unique, as we had a special right in when to the terms of union with Canada, because margarine was special to the province, and Roger ran that company after my grandfather did for years, and did an excellent job. And he was blessed to have Roger take me to school for years on his way to work. His son Mark and their kids, we all grew up together. And thinking of Roger and Peter, of course, ran Bugden's Taxi for years and years and years. Two great grand fellows. Good to see them still showing lots of life at 90, and I hope they had a wonderful birthday party. And if you've not wished them well and you've just hearing this, give them a buzz. They've both done a lot for the community, lots of volunteering, lots of things, and great mentors for all of us young people. I guess we're not quite as young, but when we were younger, to see what they did for the community and the commitment they made to their communities, their families, and the things they did. So happy birthday, fellows. Well deserved. May we all have such long, positive lives as you both have had. Okay. You know what I was doing before getting on the air and thinking of this preamble? Because, the preamble's supposed to get you talking and the like, and it's hard to do on a day like Monday when a few of you are off, but I decided to write a list, and the list was all of the stories that I saw that involved items you may or may not buy, but probably do, that are more expensive. So on our website today, you can see the story about food and the Stats Canada data, and it's 6 times, the price is 6 times higher, or 6% higher than it was last year. There's a story just about every day about the price of gasoline. So there's food, that's one. one. Gasoline. Anybody who went to the pump over the weekend knows that it is really, really expensive to fill up your car. I was laughing at a national story the other day. They were talking about, oh, yeah, the best deals in Quebec City, $1.99 a liter. Yee. There you go. So there's food, there's gas. And mortgage, add that to it. The story on the CBC website, we talked about it on VOCM's Your Mornings this morning. And your mortgage, you notice you haven't probably gotten much relief since the fall. Well, interest rates have stayed at 2.25%. If you're in a variable mortgage, that's pretty good. But if you're in a fixed term mortgage, you're 5 years you're paying near 5%. So it's almost more than double that. So that adds to your list. Then there's booze. Price of that's gone up, as we know, because there were new tax increases that came forward last week, the beginning of April. So there you go. Booze, food, gas, your mortgage. Oh, yes, if you want to travel. Oh, new surcharges, even when you book your points for food. Yeah, it's great out there, isn't it? Now, I'm conscious of a bit. I saw that somebody said the preambles were a bit negative lately. I'm trying not to be negative. I'm just trying to provoke a bit of discussion here. There's so much going on. What do you want to see happen? A lot of this, yes, directly can be blamed on what is happening around the globe and the war in Iran, and we're going to talk about that later. But boy, it's tough out there. And if you want to get away from it, it's tough out there. Now, we have our own finance minister saying, Minister Party, that he's going to look at 300 provincial taxes that could be scrapped or altered. That's great. Is that going to make a material difference? I don't know. You tell me. 2 years ago, when the issue of affordability was so pronounced, the federal government was wearing it. It sunk Justin Trudeau's leadership. But now Mark Carney, he doesn't seem to be wearing on him. The Liberals get together this weekend in Montreal. They're going to have to talk about this, though, because we only all have so much tolerance. Yeah, that's just a short list this morning. Booze, travel, food, mortgage, gas. Hard to live. Well, you can live without the booze, I suppose, but if you got a roof over your head and you're still paying a mortgage, you need that. You got to drive. You got to eat. All tough things. That was my little list this morning. I want to talk about how you're feeling about all of that, what you'd like to see the provincial government and the federal government do. Both have economic statements and activities coming up, so pay attention to all of that. There is some good news out there, though, depending on how you interpret it, and that is we received some information from DFO, I believe it was last week, that the cod stocks are in the healthy zone. I interviewed Alberto Wareham from Icewater on Thursday on my program, and Alberto makes the case that, you know what, healthy zone, committed to a sustainable fishery. Let's see if we can add to our catch allotment, the total allowable catch. We've got customers around the world who want it. This morning, Jerry Lynn and Russell talked to Rebecca Shizins at Oceana. I didn't hear that interview, but I suspect they were arguing that, whatever we do, let's do it responsibly and be governed by science. But what I found fascinating in my conversation with Alberto Wareham was Alberto told me there have been some significantly diminished cod fisheries in other places. I'm dying to know why. Ours are growing. It's taken 19, when we closed the cod fishery, 1992, 34 years to see some regrowth of the stock. But we're seeing collapses elsewhere. So what should we do? It is good news. It's good news for our producers, the fish, and our harvesters. Could be good news for you and good news for communities where this is happening. That's, of course, cod. There's a war going on around crab. That is not unusual as people are battling over prices and where it's processed. But there's optimism. When they're battling over how much they can have, that's usually more positive than negative because that suggests there is something to have and there is potential benefit. So those are interesting stories. I love when this happens on VOCM, when people who actually harvest the fish call and tell us what they think. Because I remember when the cod stock or when the cod moratorium happened, for years fishermen were saying, hey, stock's not so good. Nobody listened to them, and look what happened. I'd love to hear the people who are on the water and what they're seeing and hearing. You want to call us if you work on the water, you know somebody does, do that today, because I'd love to know where you are. Another little bit of good news, because again, I want to keep the eye on the ball of the good news, of course, is the potential for huge investment in Newfoundland and Labrador from the Department of National Defence. There was the nearly $200 million announcement made last Wednesday for Canadian Forces Base Goose Bay, the upgrade to a lot of the mechanical systems that are there. We've had both Minister Thompson and Premier VOCM speak very positively about the opportunity for Newfoundland and Labrador. I interviewed Minister Thompson last week, and she was certainly very positive, not just about Goose Bay, but other potential places that we have defense potential in Newfoundland and Labrador. Gander, of course, Stephenville has some interest. Fort Pepperell, First Station, St. John's, Argentia, where we now understand, as we heard not that long ago with the Bay du Nord announcement, there's going to be a marine facility there, an upgrade to the marine facility, or that's Bellarm, but sorry, that's not that far from Argentia. But all of these places have the potential. Will it be fulfilled? Certainly over the weekend, we get the sense that there is nothing slowing down as it relates to global conflict. Some of the most, I'll be polite here, deluded posts we've seen from President Trump, mixing his religious messages, swearing, threatening. If you're looking for global stability, breaking news. You're not going to find it in Donald Trump's tweets or Truth Social posts. We saw all of that over the weekend. But does all of that uncertainty at some level benefit Newfoundland and Labrador? We've talked about the price of oil. It may benefit gas and how it's not benefiting us at a consumer level, but the war is potentially going to drive up provincial coffers as the price of oil rises. But just back to the issue of D&D in Newfoundland, what do you think about all of that? I mean, I just find this utterly fascinating. As somebody who grew up in the 80s, and there was a push, of course, with Goose Bay and others, low-level flight training center never happened in Goose Bay because there was the downscaling. The Cold War was coming to an end. And again, here we are 40 years later, and those assets that the five big ones, Stephenville, Gander, St. John's, Goose Bay, and Argentia that were so prominent in the Second World War are now again places of interest. It's fascinating. It's coming about for the wrong reasons, but hey, you got some thoughts on that? Give us a call. The other thing that got on my radar was a story in the Telegram about the argumentation being made for a mental health advocacy office. We, of course, have the new disabilities advocate officer announcement being made. What about the mental health advocacy office? Some are arguing it is separate from a disabilities advocate. What do you think on all of that? I'm trying to track down my friend, Dr. Janine Hubbard, to get her informed take on all of that. But if you want to speak about that, give us a call. Love to know where you are on these things, because certainly on this program, we have long talked about the need to spend more and do more to help on the mental health and wellness front. So many things to talk about there. Didn't even get into the big sports weekend that it was. Lots of hockey playoffs. Cole Caulfield still with the Canadians searching for his 50th goal. The Ottawa Senators slightly ahead in the last wild card spot. Edmonton and Winnipeg. Edmonton still in a playoff spot. Winnipeg fighting their way in. All of that's kicking up. So much going on, so much to talk about here on VOCM's Open Line. Give us a call. We're going to take a break now. When we come back, your calls. For now, I'm Tim Powers, back shortly. Good morning, Tim Powers here for in Open Line this week. There's no 4 yet, and eventually there will be, but I'm your guest host this week. Okay, we've got Alan Han on line 1. Alan is with Citizens Against Clear-Cutting. Alan, good morning. What's on your mind?
Good morning. 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 Good Good morning, Tim. Thanks for taking the call. First-time caller with a phobia of public speaking, so thanks for the opportunity to work through that this morning.
Don't worry, Alan. It'll be very easy. I'll go easy on you. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you kindly for that. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly. You're coming in wonderfully.
Wonderful. Okay, well, yes, as you said, I'm with Citizens Against Clear Cutting. We're in the incorporated part of that, which we're a not-for-profit volunteer group, and we've been in the news lately because of our court proceedings. Over the clear cutting in Port Blandford, we were challenging the 2022 to 2026 harvesting plan. That's been in the works now since 2021. We were fighting that, and the issue with the clear cutting has been a decade. So I want to update you because I've had some interest on the legal proceedings that we had. Before I do, I just want to think about your listeners from the St. John's metro area, and just picture tomorrow. You pack up your kids and you get ready for a day off, and you head down to Bowring Park, and we all know how nice it is down there, and everything is clear cut. There's not a tree left standing, and there's heavy equipment after going in and taking out the beautiful beech trees and willows and chestnuts and oaks and pines, and the flower beds is run over by tractor tires. Now, how would people feel about that?
Nobody would like that. Nobody would like that at all.
No, and the reason being is because Bowring Park is considered a part of the community. Mm-hmm. And it certainly is. It's an important part, socially, culturally, you name it, economically. And the thing that we've been trying to get through to the government is that the woods that's left around Port Blandford that isn't already clear-cut is a part of our community. And that's all we've been trying to say now for 10 years plus. So I just wanted to put that out. That's sort of where we're coming from. And
Alan, just can you now? Is there any part of that in that Port Blandford area that is protected by the national park? Can you remind me?
Oh yes, over on from the Northwest River west is on the park.
Okay, but this is outside the park, land that is arguably free to be cut. And who is trying to cut it, and why?
Well, it's the government. It's the Department of Forestry's 5-year operating plan, and it has to be approved by the Minister of the Environment. So our legal proceedings were with the minister's decision in 2021 to dismiss the town, initially the town of Port Blandford and Citizens Against Clear Cutting, I think before they were incorporated, filed an appeal, which was something through the Environmental Assessment Act, just more like a legislative thing. And the minister said, no, there was no significant public concern, so we were going ahead and with the project. But he said, dismiss that. So that was quite upsetting because before there was some amendments made to this plan, the initial cut was, I don't know if you can picture it, coming around the turn there, heading west from Thorburn Lake, heading towards Port Blandford. There's this huge river valley there called the Southwest River Valley.
Okay.
And what you could see there on the opposite side of the river, outside of the buffer zone, which was whatever it was, 50 or 100 meters in, everything was slated to be clear cut, right on down through. And that is where our grandparents and our parents grew up, as where we spent all of our time. We're a logging town ourselves. And I know my grandfather was up there for, I don't know how many years. And that's where my father got started out in the woods. So, it's very important. Mm-hmm. And the minister basically said of environment, said there's no significant concern, public concern. So we took them to the Supreme Court, and we said that's absurd to say there's no public concern, because you can go on the internet right now and search Port Blandford protest, clear cutting, whatever you want to search, and you will find public standing room only public meetings, petitions, media releases, you name it. Go on. It goes on and on and on. We had a community boil up. We had protests. But according to the minister and the judge at the Supreme Court, Hartigan, it was I think what they said was the public concern was anemic. It was so poor, even though we had all that, and we were fighting. But the problem was the way the minister has the discretion to choose what criteria is used to define public concern. Because if there was public concern, that's one of the two ways you can trigger an environmental impact statement, which is basically a full environmental assessment. The much more in-depth one is through public concern or environmental reasons. And our grounds was public concern. Certainly, the go the environmental route is ridiculous. It's a woods, and you clear cut it. There's no environmental route to it. That's environmental damage. That's a closed case. But we went with the public concern because we knew there was tons of it, and the minister said there was none. But what they were doing was they were looking at the 35-day window from Engage NL, and that was the main thing they were using to gauge. And nobody got on the internet, and I was upset that I went to all the meetings and everything and was protesting. I didn't put my name in there because no one bothered with it.
Right.
And so we didn't have anyone in on the 35-day window with Engage NL. So they're saying that there was no public concern. So we had great lawyers with Equal Justice, and so we appealed that. And that was just the decision came back on that one then March 30th, just last week. And they dismissed that one as well, saying no public concern. But now with that, like I have a meeting with Equal Justice on Wednesday, a briefing. So I don't quite have all the details on how the court, legal proceedings went. But I do kind of figure that, the appeals court sort of said that they agreed that the minister has a discretion to consider things outside of the 35-day window.
Okay.
But, that's at the minister's discretion. You know how hard it is to overrule the rule that the minister, has the final discretion. Well,
yeah, the minister usually.
All
right. Well, Alan, you did great on your first time. Thank you for sharing this information. We'll keep an eye on it. You keep us updated too, okay?
Oh, absolutely. I got tons to say. I'll call back again next week.
All right. Good man. Thank you, Alan. Talk again soon.
Thank you kindly.
All right, that was Alan Hand, Citizens Against Clear Cutting. Now, this is kind of cool. I don't think I've ever talked to a hypnotist. And Jack Gooby, you're a hypnotist. That's pretty cool. How did you become a hypnotist, Jack?
I studied under Mike Mandel. I've known him since 1979 and seen him several times, and I was always interested in it. And so I studied it, and then I'm performing. So that's how it happened.
So tell it, when is your next performance, and what can people expect at a performance? I mean, obviously, I think people think they get hypnotized themselves, but what do you try and do in the performances that you give?
Well, let me tell you, I'm performing.
Now, don't hypnotize me first, Jack. I got to be on the set. I got 5 hours of radio today, so I'm asking you not to hypnotize me. But tell me what you would do to somebody else.
I just started out by saying that myself and my wife are going across Newfoundland right now, and we're performing at the Royal Canadian Legions, the ones that are participating, and we're performing a fundraiser for them. But what I'm doing is I'm the one and only hypnotist that's performing a hypnosis kitchen party. So what happens with hypnosis? Yeah, what happens with the hypnosis kitchen party is for half the show, it's a 3-hour show, and half the show is a hypnosis show, and the other half is a kitchen party where everybody just brings their instruments and plays along. We throw lyrics and chords up on the screen, and people play along with us. My wife and I lead it, and it's just a fun night. We're performing that.
Tell us where are you performing, Jack, and when, and where can people follow the tour?
Yeah, so we're performing at Royal Canadian Legions, and we have on the 7th we're at Placentia, Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 33, and the 10th of April we're at Bell Island, Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 18. And 15th April, Brigus, Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 65. 17th of April, Portugal Cove, St. Philip's Royal Canadian Legion at Branch 10. 19th, Pleasantville at Branch 56. The 20th, we're at St. John's Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 1. 23rd, we're at Buren, Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 29. 24th of April, we're at Port Blandford, which is really interesting because my great-great-grandfather's from Port Blandford, and it's really ironic because the gentleman that was just on before was talking about conservationists, and he was the first. My great-great-grandfather, Thomas Howe, was the first conservationist in Newfoundland, and so that's really, it was ironic that he was on just before I was. So and that's on the 24th, and on the 25th we're at Eastport, Royal Canadian Legion, at Branch 41. So it's a fun night, and I just want to throw out that Newfoundlanders are notorious for having kitchen parties, but I got to say, we were at St. George's, and there's a challenge on now that St. George's is the most enthusiastic crowd that we've had as far as getting up and dancing and carrying on. But Woody Point was a very close second place, and they had all their instruments there, and it was just an awesome night. And then Pasadena, that's where the most veterans showed up. So the gauntlet's down for all the other legions.
All right,
come on!
I like
it's a fun night.
Now, Jack, is there a website or a Facebook page or something people can go to just follow you?
Yes. You go www.hypnogoob, so that's HYPNOGOOB.com. And just look up on the website, and you get an idea. There's a video on there that gives you an idea what a kitchen party is, and then just check the site just go through the site, and you'll find out all the information on it. And as far as the legions, the tickets are at the door.
Okay.
So just contact the Royal Canadian Legions. Now, the Legions are all run by volunteers, so sometimes the information is not passed along very well.
That's all right. Well, we'll go to Hypnogoob. I got to go to break, Jack, but what a treat to talk to you. I think it's a fantastic idea. I hope it goes well. Thanks for sharing some time with us this morning.
Thank you so much, sir.
All right, hypnogoob.com. There you go. You can find out about Jack and his wife's tour. By the way, I used to think Hypnosis at a Newfoundland Kitchen Party was something Alan Doyle and Great Big Sea sang about. The dirty old rum's got a hold on me. That's a whole other hypnosis. All right, time for a break. When we come back, Reg wants to talk about the food fishery. Back with Reg momentarily. In today and this week, got Reg on line 3. Reg, you want to talk about the food fishery. What's on your mind, sir?
Good morning, Tim. How are you, sir?
I am okay today. How about you?
I'm good, buddy. I'm good. Well, listen, before I get started, are you the new kid on the block? Are you going to be the new moderator or what?
No, boy, I can't disclose things like that. No,
I wasn't trying
just
to
here for the week,
I mean,
Reg. Just here for the week.
That's okay. Anyway, my son, I got a question for you now. I on this food fishery again, I'm going to just so you talking to Jack.
Yeah.
Hypnotize fellow. I hope he could hypnotize some of the people in DFO. I guarantee you that, because what's going on with this food fishery, Tim, is I don't know. It's so stupid and ludicrous. It's not even funny. You know, I mean, sometimes there's jokes and you can laugh at it, but this thing that's going on with us with this food every year, the same old scenario. It's almost like the crab fishery. You know, it's spring when the crab fishery comes on scene.
Yeah.
So, I can't pick ins and out of it. I mean, 1 minute they're saying something, and there's no such thing as transparency. I don't know what that's all about. They can't come out and give us some answers. It's always wait and see. We got to do this. We got to have some more meetings. We got to have some more consultation and all this. It's just, over and over. I mean, it's almost like this means files in the States. It's all, oh my, it's a big political joke as far as I'm concerned, Tim.
So Reg, just on that
before.
Yeah, I just want to ask you a question. So the last time I talked about this was the last time I was in this chair, about 4 or 5 weeks ago. And I remember the discussion at the time was the Conservatives had tried to increase the length of the time for the food fishery. Joanne Thompson, the fisheries minister, said she was going to look at it. There's been no change, correct? It's still it's still as it was, as opposed to being extended for a week or so. That's the correct status, is it?
Yeah. There's no. There's nothing on. I mean, it was on with Brian there all last week. There was quite a few people called in, Tim, regarding nobody seems like they want to come up front and tell us anything until the last minute. I mean, and something else, Tim. This 3 days thing, I mean, I don't know what it's all about. I mean, and weekends. I mean, do they realize that people work weekends? I mean, I worked for years in Bow Arm and them places. I mean, you work 14 days, you be home for 7, and not really 7, 6, give or take. And I mean, a lot of times the weekend come up and it was blowing a storm or whatever. And if I got home Monday, or say if I got home Sunday night and it was blowing Monday, well then Monday was the last day. Well, I had to go back again Friday. Well, it was closed then. So I don't know how they revolve around this stuff. I mean, the time zones, and it just boggles my mind, Tim. And seems like when it comes to this food racket or food fishery or recreational, whatever they want to call it,
it's called,
Canada stops in Nova Scotia. That's what it seems like to me. And I'm going to tell you something. I don't like using the word discrimination, but that's the feeling I'm getting, buddy, that we're discriminated against. And let me assure Joanne Thompson, federal minister, that we're not criminals. And like I always say, you're going to get the bad apple in the barrel that applies to everything. But I mean, not all of us go out there and try to get a few fish for our table. And that's what it's for me, Tim. It's not for going out and bringing them in and selling fish. I mean, it's like everything else. But, hey.
So, Reg, let me ask you, can I ask you something related to this? Because you obviously, you fish. So when you hear the numbers last week that the cod stock's at a healthy zone, do you buy that? Because, again, I go back to working as a kid with Crosby, and a lot of guys like you who fish said, "Hey, something's not right out there." Are things getting back to normal? Are the fish at a healthy zone, the cod at a healthy zone, in your view?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, Tim, I mean, the people I talk to a lot of fishermen, and I mean, fellows been at it for years and years and said they've never seen it so plentiful before. But
interesting,
and that goes back to, and I'm glad you brought that question up. Let's say if the cod are in the state that DFO are implying, like Aaron, it's not good, it's not good, it's bad. Why did are they letting the foreign draggers come in, tear up the bottoms? I mean, it's to me, it's a joke. I mean, they'll destroy more fish in one haul, not one day, one haul, and the recreational fishery taking 2 years. I mean, it's a joke. As far as I'm concerned, it's a political football, and that's all it is. And nobody wants to say anything. There's a lot of talk and not enough action. And what happened to the fighting Newfoundlander, buddy? I'm going to ask you that question. What happened to the fighting Newfoundlander? We need a lot more guts. We got to have some people up in Ottawa, MPs, but I also heard now or see that 4 MPs we do have up there, the Liberals, they went against the food fishery. I don't know what that's all about, but I'm going to tell you, we need a lot more people speaking up on behalf of Newfoundland. And that's pretty well all I got to say today, because I got to watch my blood pressure. You know what I mean, Tim?
Well, you know what, Reg? I don't want to be calling the paramedics now and sending them out to you.
That's what I said. I don't want you now rushing and calling. No. You know, I don't know. It's like Bill Rowe would say, God love him. Am I out to lunch or am I making sense? Because to me, it sure as hell don't make sense to me, Tim. So.
Well, you always make sense to me, Reg, and I love the call. Thank you. Now go sit down, get that blood pressure under control, get it back to 120/80. It'll be perfect then, all right?
Yeah, well, I can't wait now till 4 o'clock to listen to you again, so you know what I mean. And by the way, buddy, you're doing a good job. I'll tell you that right now. You got a bit of clout, and that's what I like about you. So you have a good day too, my buddy.
All right, thank you, Reg. Well, geez, I better stop now. End the show, Reg, because it can only go downhill from there. That was very kind of Reg. All right, before we take a break, and we got some space for calls, by the way, and I want to keep talking about, I never used to like the fisheries calls because I didn't understand it. That's shame on me for not doing it. But I want to talk to you, all of you who are out on the water, because this is still so important to us. It will always be important to us in Newfoundland and Labrador. But I got to shout out, because he's got connections to Newfoundland and Labrador, and that is Scott Oak. Scott, I believe, broadcasted in Cape Breton and Newfoundland for a while. Scott, as most of you know, legendary sports broadcaster and did news for a while. Anyway, he announced on Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday that he's done after 50 years. Big thanks to Scott. He's done incredible work. He's going to do the rest of the season, of course, and the playoffs, but that's a voice that a lot of Canadians cherish. And again, like many of the great voices nationally, he spent time in our region doing things for us, and he's done a lot in the philanthropic world and helping people, particularly those who have had challenges with addiction issues. Anyway, big shout out to Scott Oak. Shout out to you. Time for a break. Back with more of your calls after this. Good morning. When I was going through the news this morning, because that's what you do when you get ready for this show, I saw this article by Cameron Guilfoy in the Telegram, and the headline reads, "Does Newfoundland need a standalone mental health advocacy office?" Here's a little bit of what Cameron wrote, and then I'll bring on my guest. "The only piece of legislation passed by the new provincial government so far this session is in Newfoundland's House of Assembly to establish a disability advocate office. When announced in March, the government said the independent office would address gaps in service and help residents navigate the system. The role is similar to other advocacy offices in the province, such as the Seniors Advocate and the Child and Youth Advocate. Included in the disabilities advocate mandate is mental health advocacy, which has raised some concerns for people working in the field. I apparently have trouble reading the word advocacy, so that may be a concern for you, but I know Janine Hubbard will look past that. Dr. Janine Hubbard joins us. Janine is the incoming president of the Canadian Psychological Association. Janine, I wanted to talk to you about this because we talk mental health a lot. Well, what's your take on whether having a standalone mental health advocacy office would be helpful for Newfoundland and Labrador?
Well, here you go, Tim, and I'm going to differ from my normal discourse and say I'm not sure. I think
it's okay to be ambivalent. That gives me more questions to ask. Keep going.
Yeah, well, because you and I have spoken at length over the years about the idea of a minister of mental health and whether that, or a ministry of mental health, and whether that's under the healthcare portfolio, whether it's a separate portfolio, whether that's, kind of an arm's, like how that looks kind of at the provincial government level. We have it at the federal level. Number of provinces do have it as a separate portfolio. We did very, very briefly, and it was buried on a Friday afternoon in the announcement, and I had to do double takes and run around all over the place, go, did we just announce a minister of health or of mental health? And we did, but that separate portfolio was very short-lasting, and now, of course, is rolled into the giant portfolio that Leila Evans is carrying. And so there's always this back and forth because we know that mental health is health. So is it helpful to keep it separate, but at the same time, mental health is housing. Mental health is seniors. Mental health is children's. So there have definitely been some pros and cons, kind of looking at just in general more of a provincial portfolio, really being able to highlight the issues and concerns, and how that would look and how that might be able to be really effective, as in contrast to, sort of an advocacy office. I'm honestly not sure. And that's, I actually lean to some of your expertise there.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing with, I don't know if I have any expertise, but thank you, Janine, for assuming there may be some there. The thing I think with advocacy offices that maybe makes them somewhat helpful, and I do underline the word somewhat, is they do get their own resourcing to do the advocacy, which means, as we've seen with the seniors advocate, who's been very good at raising seniors issues and telling more stories and putting more public focus on an issue in hopes that it gets spending. My thinking is, though, when it comes to mental health, there is a very good public advocacy system that exists already, and I might, rather see the money go to frontline services. But who knows? Do you have concerns, though, that, as some do, that the disabilities advocate also has a responsibility for mental health? I mean, we could get into a definitional argument about disabilities and approach and the like. I mean, what's your take on at least the disabilities advocate having some role here?
Well, I think all of those advocacy offices have a role around mental health. True. As I said, it permeates every level of those. When I look at, human rights, when I look at just, like I say, seniors and children's, it's all so overlapping. And you are quite right. We actually do have some very powerful advocacy voices. Not that this might not augment, but what I'm hearing, a lot of the advocacy is it's saying we don't have enough staff, we don't have enough frontline services, and I mean, I know because I've been seeing it, right on the front lines. There have been some major initiatives trying to address both recruitment and retention, and looking at, are there different ways that we can offer services? How can we, try to meet the needs of the community? And I know we're not there. I'm going to be the first to say it. Like I say, I see it firsthand. But we know that the services are needed. So I guess I guess same kind of question is, are we better off making sure that there is someone at the budget table saying, hey, we're supposed to be getting, 9% of this budget towards mental health, really kind of pushing towards where's the money, where are the services, where are the supports, so working it from the inside. But that's also as someone who, regardless of political party, tries to work from within the inside, but do the external advocacy as needed.
Let me just pick up on something you said there, because ultimately it's about providing accessibility of service to people. How are we doing when it comes to your profession, psychologist? You and I have talked for years about how there aren't, there's only so many Janine Hubbards out there. It takes time, and you and I had a great conversation about what Ontario is looking at doing in changing credentials and perhaps lessening the training period. We can go in a lot of directions here, but on the first part of the question, how are we in terms of having people that people can see?
Well, like issues across the country, there are shortages, and especially in kind of rural areas. I mean, we're trying our best in terms of remote access. One of the things that I think could be an exciting development for this province, and I'm not sure where it is in the pipeline, but I know there is proposed legislation to regulate our mental health counselors, which, because again, remembering not everybody needs to see a psychologist. Psychologists bring a specific skill set, but so do many of my other colleagues with different levels of training. And so seeing that becoming a more regulated profession, which means it's accountable, there's code of ethics, there's, places you can go if there are concerns, I think could go a long way in terms of addressing some of the immediate needs and immediate concerns. And then one of the things I'm being cautiously optimistic about is the Ontario situation, plus a lot of other things have prompted. We're looking at a national summit in terms of how do we train psychologists? What models do we follow? What do people need in order to become a psychologist versus a mental health counselor versus, any of the other areas in that space? Because we have a lot of players. So it's making sure that we are making the best usage of the specialized skill sets at each of those levels of training and within each of those disciplines.
Yeah, last question for you. So you're taking on your role in June. Based on what you just said a moment ago as head of the Canadian Psychological Association, is that going to be one of the top priorities? I'm sure it already is. It's just getting people into the profession, make sure they're properly credentialed. Where does that fit, Janine, on the national agenda?
Well, that's just it, because what we have are each of the provinces have regulators that regulate the practice of psychology, and even in some of our training programs, qualifications look different. So looking at following, for example, some of the med schools and saying, how can we standardize things a little bit more? How can we increase mobility? At the moment, if I'm going to practice virtually in another province, I'm having to do full registration and licensure. How are some ways that we can ease some of that access, but at the same time keeping a standard high set of expectations? So certainly CPA and the psychology regulators are, and actually the licensing folks that deal with our licensing exams, and the American Psychological Association, we're all meeting on a regular basis and trying to see, okay, how can we maybe look at doing this differently? So exciting times ahead, Tim.
Well, not as exciting as your trip to the SPCA that you posted on Facebook with that wonderful dog. So I hope that was great. Thank you, Janine. Appreciate the time as always.
Anytime, and thanks to the great folks at SPCA. They do great fundraisers. They've made both me and my dog look, spring-like and cheerful, and it's always
That's what it's all about. Cause. We got to be spring-like and cheerful. Although you need, you have no worries about the stream of business given the weather and its impact on mental health. Janine, great to have you. That's Dr. Janine Hubbard, the incoming president of the Canadian Psychological Association and also a registered psychologist in Newfoundland and Labrador. Time for the news. Back with more after that. Tim Powers hosting Open Line this week. By the way, Sarah, you sound great. After the Blue Jays didn't play so great, Sarah's a huge Jays fan, and the Jays just lost. We're swept by the Chicago White Sox, and they play the Dodgers tonight. Remember them? Those menacing, rich LA Dodgers. Let's hope they get back on track this evening. Okay, Easter Monday marks a solemn occasion in Irish history, the failed Easter Rising of 1916, when Irish Republicans rose up against British rule. The six-day uprising saw hundreds seize buildings and institutions, only to be quashed by thousands of British forces. 16 rebel leaders were executed and hundreds of lives were lost, but the incident is often seen as the beginning of the movement that eventually led to the creation of the Irish Republic. To talk to us about that, and delighted to have him as local historian and author Michael Boyle, who for the last 20 years on each Easter Monday has read a proclamation at Colonial Building. Michael, how are you this morning?
Good morning, Tim. Good morning, Tim, and welcome to VOCM Open Line, where it's all happening, right? You agree with that?
Yeah. I agree with that. Listen, Michael, do you know what I did this morning? I don't know if it was deliberate or not. I wore my Swiler's pink, white, and green rugby toque. So there you go. And I read this story last night, and I went to look at the great Michael Collins film, and I think he played a role in all of this, of course, played by Liam Neeson. Anyway, tell us about the history of the Easter Rising first, and then we'll get to the event.
Well, I don't want to go into full history this morning with our listeners, because I think you've given a good synopsis of it. What we're trying to do, and it's not me, it's there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise in this world, and we have a kind of a ceremony with there's no parades, there's no bands, there's no politicians giving greetings. 1916 was a very solemn year, not only in Ireland, but in Newfoundland. So I think in April 1916, we had the Easter Rising. 2 months later, we had July 1st in Newfoundland, the tremendous loss in Beaumont Hamel. So what we're doing, there are three sort of threads to this morning. One is the Easter Rising. Two is remembering. This is kind of revolutionary in a sense. It's something different. Remembering the people who, the Newfoundland Regiment at Beaumont Hamel in July 1st. And we're going to mention that word that nobody mentions anymore, a place called Gaza. So it's a kind of unique kind of. You can see how it's a kind of a melting pot in a way of bringing those strands together. I'm reluctant to get into the full history of the Easter Rising. I've covered a fair bit of that in. I just want to mention just for a couple of minutes. I've done a memoir. If you don't mind, and you know that expression. You know that expression, Tim. A lot of people you've heard them say, "I was thinking of writing a book."
Well, you went and did it, Michael.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. So I want to mention a little bit of the book and then come back to the writing, if that's okay with you. Okay. I just want to mention the book, and in literature there are two stories. A young man goes on a journey, and a stranger comes into town. And I think I've lived both these journeys. And I'll give you the 45-second summary of the book. Okay, way back in 1967, at the age of 23, red-haired, curly fella from the mosslands of County Derry spoke with a strange accent. He answered an ad. Just as the troubles were coming in Ireland, answered an ad to go to a place called Island Harbour, Fogo Island. What happened to him? Wow. Historians would call this a spectacular risk. You're wondering why I was able to write the book. And there are listeners out there, and you probably met people who want to write a book, Tim, over your career.
Michael. Yes, I have.
To encourage people, one of the things is to get an editor. Get an editor. Don't go off on your own ram stamp. You've got to have an editor. And I was lucky to get a former student, Randy Crane, from Baltimore High. And then the cover of the book. You probably heard the expression, you can't judge a book by the cover. You probably heard that before. Yeah, I think in my case, we can. When I was teaching, believe it or not, I was assigned to go to. I don't want to take the whole program. I was assigned to teach geography up in Baltimore High, and I was also asked to teach art. This is back in the early 70s. When I got up to Baltimore High, I realized that everybody in the community was an artist, and the students were. And I went out to the lighthouse, was out jogging, and I saw this fellow called Jerry, who was an artist. And I said, Jerry, would you drop into the school and talk about art? You know what
now, Michael, I got to stop you there. There's a whole story of a red-haired Irishman jogging on Fogo Island. I mean, I don't know many Irishmen that jog. They'll jog for their pints, but okay, that in and of itself is a whole subtext. Keep going, Michael.
Yeah. The cover, what Jerry did then in that 20 minutes was draw a portrait of myself, which is a cover, which is just a cover to die for. I was at a book fair in Cape Royal, and somebody came along and he says, "I'm really not really interested in your book." He says, "I just want to buy the cover." So that type of thing. I want to. The other thing is I do mention the Troubles because it brings you right back to that. And the way for people in Newfoundland, it's very hard to get there. You know that yourself. Very hard to get around it. So I have a quick, crude summary of the Troubles in Ireland. Ireland and England had an 800-year relationship.
Yes.
And then they had a messy divorce in the 1920s. As a result of that messy divorce, Great Britain got Northern Ireland. But Northern Ireland turned out to be a problem child. Okay, England was an unfit father. The Republic of Ireland was an unfit mother. So you get what I mean? That's where some of the
having
stuff
been
comes
there
from.
often, I totally get what you mean. I love the way you described it. Got to give you about 30 more seconds there, Michael, because there's somebody on the line who wants to throw you a bouquet. So 30 seconds, close her up, my friend.
Okay.
And now I know it's hard for
thanks
an Irishman to close anything in 30 seconds, but you can do it.
It's almost impossible. Folks, I'd like to thank the people of this province who opened the door to me. There's not a house between Cappahayden and Brigus South that I've dropped in, had a cup of tea, had a glass of rum, had supper, and so forth. What more can I say? People who open doors. And that's what I describe Newfoundland, a place that has a door always open. Do you remember Joni Mitchell said it? Do you remember Joni Mitchell? We don't know
she was
what
in
we
the
got
news
until
last
it's gone.
week. She was hanging out with the Prime Minister at the Junos. Michael, absolute treat to talk with you. I'm going to look up your book. I got to see the picture because, again, the image of a red-haired Irishman jogging anywhere in the 70s, let alone Fogo Island, is in and of itself spectacular to me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you
Appreciate
very much.
the time.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go. We got Sean on the line. Sean, you've got a bouquet to throw to Michael. Let her rip.
Hey, Duke, what a super invite to VOCM this morning. I just turned your radio station on a few minutes ago. And to hear Michael Boyle's voice again this morning was wonderful. Last weekend, he was a guest at our Positive Thinkers Club Saturday morning breakfast.
Okay.
We do it once
Yes,
a
I
month,
remember he was doing that. Right. How did that go?
Oh, my God, it was the best. Tim, the guy is an entertainer, and he didn't get into his story, but you know what? He didn't stay on Fogo Island very long because the job was gone the next day, and he didn't get it. So he went to Gander. He was planning on flying back to Ireland. He got to Gander, and someone told him there were 2 jobs at the school in Gander. He should apply for one of them, and he did, and he was there forever. And then he ended up in several other places before he ended up at Baltimore High School out there in Fairyland, which was the perfect place for a Michael Boyle with that accent to land. And he actually retired there.
Yeah, the Irish Shore, Michael Doyle, sorry, put more Irish of the Boyle, put more Irish of the Irish Shore. Well, have you read his book? Have you seen this infamous cover that he was talking about?
Absolutely. It is a fabulous memoir. As you know, my father was a great writer, and I'm a journalist by trade, and my younger brother, Brian, who works in there as well. So, you know, we're very keen on how people write, and especially if they're characters, and he's one character, and he's a great guy. Everybody wanted to say hello to him after his presentation. And I tell you, like, I have his book. You got to get his book, and he doesn't do justice to the description of himself showing up here in Newfoundland with the curly red Irish hair and all the rest of it. You know, green as you can get, but red hair. It was just a great morning, and we all had a wonderful breakfast and a time with him. So,
well, I'm glad you did that, Sean. Thank you for calling. Good to talk to you, buddy. You take care.
No problem.
Bye.
It's just great to hear his voice. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye now.
All right, bye. That's Sean Callahan. Yeah, Michael Boyle. What a character, and I'm still struck. I'm sorry, I've said it 3 times. I know a lot of Irish men and women. I've been to Ireland. Jogging population, not what I would describe and run into the 1970s. Wow. All right, a lot of calls. When we come back, we'll try and get them all on. Back here shortly on VOCM's Open Line. Welcome back. Seems clear-cutting is a topic of choice today. We're going to go to Wayne Holloway. Wayne, you want to talk about clear-cutting as well? Go ahead, my friend.
Yes, I did indeed, Tim. First, good morning to you and to the listeners out there. I hope everybody has survived the Easter weekend and are doing well.
Hopefully, the chocolate binge is done. They're not too high on the sugar, but they're still having fun. Right, Wayne? You want to have some fun.
Yes, well, excuse me. Anyway, back to the clear-cutting Port Blanford.
Yes.
Maybe 10 years ago, the government set out on a big caribou study. They invested $13 million, I think it was, in it. And they looked at all the things that would impact caribou populations on the island. One of the biggest things is lack of habitat.
Okay.
And for the Middle Ridge herd, that forested area there that parallels the highway down through Port Blanford and so on is probably the only piece of undisturbed or virtually undisturbed habitat that is left for the Middle Ridge herd. Turno's been cut, Gamble's been cut, Glenwood is cut, all over the place. And clear cutting is one of the most significant criteria for caribou survival over the long haul. And the thing is, if this winter is a great background for this item, and that is that they have no winter habitat in which to hide during cold weather and deep snow. Now, I don't know how much forest is left in there either, and I am aware that there are power lines that kind of chop up the habitat there. But that herd has nowhere left to go in a severe winter. So,
you go ahead, Wayne.
Yeah, how is that factored in this whole clear cutting idea? Because what I see has been the principal element that's come out of all the clear cutting that is being done here for the little paper mill in Corner Brook that has one producing machine out of the 6 that was there at one time. And we have 5 sawmills that are just keep on clear cutting, even though the government had a study done probably 8 or 10 years ago by Halifax Global Inc. That was a consulting company. Mm-hmm. And they clearly stated what the sawmills here would have to do in order to be marginally profitable, none of which has been done. They keep on cutting the forest, sawing it into little pieces of lumber, and taking the chips off it and sending it to Corner Brook to try to keep that dying or dead industry alive. And all the rest of us got to make the sacrifice for it. Government won't. And the only thing they protected over the whole time is the jobs of politicians.
Wayne, just help me here, because again, when I was talking earlier to Alan, I hear there's a plan to do this. I hear there's resistance to do this, but you're touching on it. I want to get a bit more at it. So, and you're asking the right question. Like, where is this coming from? This desire to clear cut. Where is it coming from?
Well, that's been the modus operandi of the Forestry Department as long as I can remember.
Okay.
Because I've attended lots of these forestry consulting meetings in Gander and all over the place. Nothing has come of it other than to allow the timber companies and the paper company to cut wherever and whenever and how much they want to cut. I mean, if you fly over Newfoundland now, you'll be hard-pressed outside the 2 national parks and maybe a provincial park or 2 to find anywhere that has been leveled. And this bit of timber that's down there parallel the highway around Port Blanchard area, that is the last of it, as far as I know, in that area. And we did lots of flying over there because we ran outfitting businesses out that way for years, so we were pretty well appraised of what standing timber was left. So there isn't a lot left. And what we're doing here now is what we've been doing for far too long, and that is trying to keep alive things that have died at the expense of the most significant thing that's left in Newfoundland that has any promise for the future, which is Memorial University. You know, I know people might have a struggle to connect those 2 pieces of information. But while we're subsidizing the mills in Corner Brook and the sawmills, we can't afford, and 2 things which have no long future left in Newfoundland. We're starving our university, the one thing that has some potential to generate a future for Newfoundlanders. So I don't understand why we're making such stupid decisions in there in the Federation Hill. I don't.
Well, Wayne, I appreciate your perspective on this. You're helping me understand it so I can ask better questions. Thanks for calling in today, Wayne.
Yeah, well, we spent $13 million trying to figure out what was going on with caribou herd, and all we accomplished in the end was to confirm what we already knew and didn't apply and still hasn't applied. The Middle Ridge herd hasn't grown since the study was done. I think very marginally, that's all, because they have no place to grow.
Yeah.
All the caribou herds are under stress because of clear cutting and highways and, being developed everywhere. You won't go up Terranova area and you can get on your ATV and go to run shy of gas, which might be very long now, I suppose. But I mean, it's just too much of it. It is too much of it.
Okay.
The whole island is destroyed. Anyway.
Yeah, you got to have a purpose for it, and there's lots of research, as you have said, on the need to protect caribou herds and the importance of doing that, and wildlife and the preservation of the broader ecosystem, and certainly that's something that's governed things that have happened in Labrador and Quebec. All right, got to leave it there, Wayne. Thank you for your time.
I got a pile of caribou data, 2 feet high, study after study after study, all the same conclusions. None of it listened to by the governments.
All right. Appreciate the call. Thank you, Wayne.
Have a good day.
Care. All right, that's Wayne Holloway and Claire Cutting. Some good conversation there. We got Phoebe, you're coming up after the break, but let me go to Alex. Alex, you want to talk about vehicle registration. Go ahead.
Good morning, Tim. How are you getting on?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Good. Quick one. So I'm calling today. I'm an Uber driver part-time. All right. I got a full-time job Monday to Friday, but picked up the Uber gig. It's great. Okay. So Uber's very strict with the policies. Everything is done through their app, from their driver app. My vehicle registration expired as of March 31st. Okay. So it goes in March 12th. Goes on the digital government website, registers it, notification comes up, says you'll be mailed a copy. Now it's today, still haven't received the physical copy. Mm-hmm. And of course you get a receipt, so for cops pulling you over here locally, but Uber wouldn't take that. And that's it. That's their policy. They need the physical copy. So I've been kicked off the app now for 6 days. Now, I do have a second income, obviously my primary income, and my mortgage is going to be paid for, but that's my spending money, right? And that's my little bit of fun money and my gas money and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Anyway, so man. So at the same time today, I go up to my garage to get a vehicle inspection, which is another thing I got to do a year. And I was talking to my mechanic, and I said, "Yes, I said, I'm waiting on my insurance." He said, "Yes, I'm waiting on about 5." He said, ever since that new government took over, he said, everything has slowed down. He said, I used to be able to get he said, I'm only in the West End here, Tim. I'm in, pretty much downtown. I can't get a vehicle registration sent to me from March 12th to August 6th. Long story short, calls up to DMV today. Uses general registration or the general question line. She goes, let me walk you through the app. She said, go back into MyGovNL. She said, you can get the PDF online. I said, you got to be kidding me. That didn't come up. She said, oh, yeah. She said, it's not something that's promoted. And she couldn't reprint one from her end because it hasn't been 30 days since I paid my registration.
Okay.
Anyway, so long story short, I just wanted to call in today to say that if anyone's waiting on a registration, apparently you can get them in a PDF form, although it doesn't notify you that. And I don't know what's going on in DMV, man. Can't get a physical copy sent out. So
I've heard stories about. I've heard all manner of stories about DMV and how they work. And anyway, I appreciate the call, Alex. We'll keep our eyes on this. And if anybody else has had an experience like Alex or is having frustrations, give us a call. Thank you for the call today. Appreciate it.
Right on, brother. Thanks.
All right, take care. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I think Phoebe's on the line to talk a little bit more about clear cutting, topic of the day. It's an important one. Back with that in a moment here on Open Line. Welcome back. We're going to go to Phoebe, who's been waiting. Phoebe, you want to talk about clear cutting as well. What's on your mind?
Yes, sir. Good morning.
Good morning.
Myself and my late husband were part of the original Citizens Against Clear Cutting Committee that was started back initially in 2021, I guess, when this started. And I listened to Alan Hand this morning, and he triggered needed me to be able to call into open line and just explain a little bit about what went on initially.
Yes,
because,
please.
Yeah, because I find it very upsetting that the courts, or whoever they are, said that there was no public interest, and that was one of the reasons why the case never got accepted in the court, because we had several public meetings in our community. In our Legion Hall, we almost filled the building. The building can take 150 people, and we almost filled the building on 3 separate times. We also had the 3 members of the forestry that attended one of those meetings, and we made it quite clear our concerns and addressed it with them. So forestry certainly was aware of the concerns of the people. We also got a meeting in St. John's.
Okay.
The committee and the town council of Port Blanford. We got a meeting in St. John's with the then minister, Jerry Byrne, to discuss our concerns. And we brought forward several concerns. One of them was that the pine marten was endangered, and this was a report that the government had done themselves and put out. Mm-hmm. We brought that forward. We also brought forward the concern that the Southwest River Valley is a moose calving area, which would be detrimental to the moose population in this area, for sure, if the clear cutting went ahead. One of the major ones was that there was a lot of clear cutting done on the other side of the bay, we call it,
okay,
here in Port Blanford, and the damage that's done was done to the land side by the clear cutting that was done over there was atrocious. And we even had proof of that. We brought proof to the meeting to show the damage that was done. That was one of our big major concerns, because that land is not come back from where the clear cutting was done. We also had Mr. Jim Lester bring it forward in the House of Assembly, the people's concerns about the clear cutting here in Port Blanford. And I really feel that Minister Byrne at that time, mm-hmm. he did not take none of our concerns into consideration. He treated us like a bunch of children. He had a very condescending attitude towards us. And no matter what reasoning we came up with, he had a counter excuse as to why he was not in favor of the clear cutting not going ahead.
Phoebe, can we pause there for a sec? I just want to ask you one question, because the thing that keeps leaping out at me, and you started with it, is, there wasn't enough public interest. Did they ever tell you what enough public interest looked like? Were they counting the number of people, the number of events? Was that ever defined for you? Not to my knowledge, but now, okay. I mean, you got to consider this is 6 years ago, right? Right. This is 5 years ago, and my memory is not the best. So okay. There may have been something said. But okay. Actually, now that you said that and I think about it, I do remember a conversation that took place at that meeting where we had the forestry people in the building,
And they had said that they had sent out to all the areas, or I think maybe to the town councils of all the areas that were affected by this cutting plan. Now, there's several of them. There's not just Port Blanford.
It's not just one, yeah.
No, it's a wide area, and that they had sent it out for public consultations, and that there was not a lot of public input into those scheduled meetings that the forestry had put out. Now, they did say that, but
the reason I asked that, Phoebe, the reason, sorry, I'll only interrupt you one more time to make this point. And I know in different governments they'll count things by, did we get 700 emails? Did we get a petition? So it's always fascinating to me when they use that line that there wasn't enough public interest. I wonder what they were trying to measure there. Anyway, you continue. I'll give you about another minute or so, and then I have to bring on another caller, if that's okay.
Oh, that's fine, because what I got to say, I'll have said by then. It was a petition that Mr. Lester brought forward into the House of Assembly that day. We did have a petition. Actually, we had two petitions. The first one that we had was not acceptable because of the way that it was done. So we did get the proper forms and whatnot. But another big issue for us is the windbreak. Ever since all this clear cutting that's happened on the other side of the bay, Port Blanford has had a big difference in the wind that we get, and a lot of damage done to people's property and houses and roofs here in the community because of the windbreak. And another one is our Salmon River.
Okay.
The Southwest River comes down through, and that's one of the salmon rivers for this area. And there's been, with the little bit of clear cutting that was done in around Thorburn Lake, there's been a lot of silt and runoff and branches and trees and things all come down through the river with that. So if they go in there and do as big a clear cutting as what they want to do, then we're going to be in a much worse state. And my final words that I got to say is that the people that went in to have this meeting with Mr. Byrne, we found out after the fact, after we had our meeting, that Mr. Byrne had a meeting with the harvesters right before he had the meeting with us. And out of that meeting, they were told that they would be able to go in there. So that's my final words. And I'm thankful that Open Line is there so that people like me can voice my opinion. When we finished up, my husband and I finished up with the clear cutting back then, I didn't have any intentions of continuing on, but I just can't sit back because where it's so long ago, all these different issues that I just brought up, people forget these things, and there's a lot of people don't know anything about them.
Well, you gave great context.
So this is why I called in today.
Well, thank you for calling in, and thank you for giving us a bunch of that history and context. Very important. You have a good day, Phoebe. Thank you.
You too. Bye-bye. Bye.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, Michelle, who wants to respond to Alex and the challenges he was having at DMV. Hang tough, Michelle. We'll be right back with you momentarily. Welcome back. All right, Michelle's been waiting. She wants to respond to Alex, who was on earlier, expressing his frustration with the Department of Motor Vehicles. Michelle, how are you this morning?
I'm not too bad, Tim, and how are you? Happy Easter Monday to you.
Yes, happy Easter Monday to you. Well, I'm glad you're happy and you're not too bad because I'm working, and I appreciate you calling because you're making my work easier, Michelle. So what do you got on your mind?
I have a vacation week, so that's why I'm happy.
Well, you enjoy that.
Yes. No, I'm responding to Alex about motor vehicle and registration. My husband licensed his truck back in September.
Okay.
So we waited a month or so when no registration came. So one day after work, I went over and I said, I just want to let you know that my husband hasn't received his registration. So buddy on the desk said to me, he said, are you on the registration? I said, no, I'm not. I said, he said, well, I can't give you no personal information.
Of course, privacy, Michelle.
Pardon?
I said privacy, Michelle. They're going to start with that, right? They can't tell you anything.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Understandable. And I said to him, I said, I don't want no personal information. I said, I want to give you information, and you can look it up.
Common sense being applied by you.
So anyway, he gave me a piece of paper to bring home to my husband to sign, yada, yada, yada. And my husband said, you know what? Forget it. Because we have a picture that we took when we registered the vehicle.
Right.
So if we got pulled over, well, then that would suffice. But here we are, it's April, and he still have not received his registration. Now, I didn't know there was an option to go in and print off.
Wow. And you were given none of that information, just the piece of paper and all. It seems to me like they just make their own work more cumbersome for themselves. So you have the picture, your husband can drive his vehicle, and your husband said not to bother anymore. What would you say to the people? There's probably DMV workers that are listening today. They're probably well-meaning. How could they make this better, Michelle?
Well, I mean, we've never had an issue with it, so I don't know what the problem is now. Maybe this is the new way, is that, you know what, you print it off yourself rather than them have to mail it out because there's no stickers anymore. It doesn't matter. I don't know. I don't know what the problem is, but it's all right that my husband wasn't going to sell his vehicle because he'd need the registration in order to sell it. But he had no intentions on selling it, so you know what? If I get pulled over, I got the picture. And again, I don't know where the fault is with the motor vehicle. It's the first time it's ever happened.
Yeah,
but obviously I'm not the only one.
No, you're not the only one, and there's a lot of these stories. And as you say, people are just adapting anyway. Like you taking the picture, it's a pretty common thing for people to do when they're waiting for something. Or instead of putting paper insurance in their glove compartment, they just take a picture of it. And the police, being mostly fair-minded, they look at that, and that's fine with them. As long as they get a number and they can legitimize it and they see that you have it, that's the stuff they would look at. All right, well, good luck getting it, Michelle. I hope it eventually comes.
I think it's too late now. It's only another 3 or 4 months and you got to license it again, so. Oh, my.
Well,
anyway.
Thank you for sharing the story. Enjoy your week off.
All right, you have a great day.
Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate the call. Well, if you've got DMV stories, we'll have them. I'm not trying to be unfair to the workers at DMV. I mean, they are governed by practices and approaches, but you do have to think there are better ways to do all of this. I have this frustration with the passport office from time to time that every time I get submitting a new picture, because you age over time from when you last had your passport picture taken, but then to fill out all the frigging same material, which they have, unless you have had a major departure, which they would know about if you have some criminal record or things like that. It's so, it seems burdensome. Anyway, we'll save that more for later or another day. Dennis is on the line. He also wants to talk clear cutting. Dennis, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Well, where do Port Blanford crowd think they're getting the firewood from?
I don't know. Clearly not from the forest around them.
That's right. And you don't want their forest touched. So
you have a very different view. You support... Go ahead, Dennis. Sorry, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah, I'd be glad to let them cut somewhere else and bring it in and sell it to them, because not everybody can afford all or liquid.
Right.
So they have to burn wood.
And is that your understanding of what this cutting... Sorry, I just want to ask you a question because you raised a really good point. Is that your understanding of what this cutting is about, that the Department of Forestry allows this to happen and then that wood is sold as firewood?
Not all of it is sold as firewood. Some of it is sold as logs, as lumber.
Okay.
But back 10, 12 years ago, they had a commercial operator in Port Blanford. He cut on Port Blanford boundary. There was no concern over him. He cut 60, 70 hectares there. He did clear cut it. There was one word mentioned about it because he belonged to Port Blanford. Right now, there's no commercial operator in Port Blanford. So they don't want to touch now.
So where are you from around that area, Dennis? It sounds like, because you know a bit of the history there. Okay, so there's a bit of... So you're arguing there's a bit of self-interest among the Port Blandford crowd that's calling. Is that your argument too?
Yeah, well, I don't want to see the forests all cut out.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one point I'm making. But still, if you're off a Port Blandford boundary, what's Port Blandford any of their business what they cut?
Yeah, no.
We were commercial. We caught on Port Blandford boundary on the other side of the bay. She's talking about it. They drove us out of it. Okay, they said it was Port Blandford boundary, but I don't know how they owns it. But they said it's Port Blandford boundary. Because the question was, I was to the 3 meetings yet in the Legion. And by the way, the Legion was not full. Be a long shot. The last time there might have been 30, 40 people there. But I asked them, I said, I'm going to Bell Cabin in back of Port Blandford. Who do I go to see about buying the cabin? They said, you go to Crown Land. I said, if I got to pay $10,000, do I give the money to use or to Crown Land? They said, to Crown Land. I said, what in the name of God do you own? You owns nothing. Because if he owns it, well, if he gets the money, he got to say. But why is we got forestry fellas and the government paying them money if they got no say on it?
Yeah, no, that's fair. Everybody should have a say, particularly if you've got some skin in the game, as the Port Blandford people, or I'm assuming many of the callers are from that area, are arguing about why there shouldn't be clear cutting. Everybody should have the ability to input. And it sounds like, again, based on what those who are opposed to clear cutting have been saying, there have been views put forward. Do you think, what is the thing that's fascinating me this morning, Dennis? I'll give you about a minute on this one. How should the government determine public interest? I mean, previously they defined it by the fact that they said there wasn't enough public interest to prevent clear cutting. What should they do to define public interest here?
Well, I don't know about that, but I'll tell you another question. When the moratorium went on with the fishery, okay, they were against it. They were all against it. They want to come down fishing. They want to gut the bay out. They keep on coming, and they're at it now. The same thing. You only allowed 3 or 4 days on a weekend. They want it open all summer long. So what is the difference? If the fishery's in trouble, why do they want the fishery open all summer long? The same people.
All right. Well, I appreciate your call. We'll look into this more. Thank you for giving a different perspective on all this. We want all perspectives. Thanks for the call, Dennis.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
All right, take care. That is Dennis, who says there's some local dimensions to all of this and makes the point that some of the forest product that is used goes to home heating and logging. And we will try and get, Dave and I will try and track down, it'll probably be tomorrow because most government offices have the day off today, Forestry Minister Pleeman Forsey to see what he can share on all of this and what public interest is. We'll pursue all of that. But now, time for the news. Back with more of your calls after that.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Good morning, everybody. Tim Powers sitting in, hosting Open Line this week. Well, if you were actually enjoying Easter over the weekend and turned off news and social media, you would have missed, probably to your pleasure, the President of the United States unwinding on Iran and matters surrounding the Strait of Hormuz. I'm going to read, with some editing, a Truth Social post that the president put out on the weekend. This is the president. I'm quoting now. Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the effing straight, you crazy B-words, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah, President Donald J. Trump. Later on, he told Fox News there was a good chance a deal could be reached today, but he was still considering blowing everything up and taking over the oil. Later, the president posted Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, an apparent extension of the deadline. Oh my, to try and figure out what is going on between the U.S. and Iran and the impact it has on us, we have that monumental task to be undertaken by our friend, Dr. Luke Ashworth of Memorial University International politics professor. Luke, I have to say, you and I have talked about Trump for a long time over the last couple of years, but I would just say this. Had Joe Biden posted what Donald Trump posted, it wasn't just that Truth Social post. There was another one over the weekend that was a bit out there. People would be questioning his mental capacity, suggesting that impeachment ought to happen. There's a little bit of that happening. Piers Morgan, the British commentator, an American commentator who you and I both know, said, President, take that down or your mental health will get questioned. Trying to perk the president's mental health. What are we to make about where America wants to go with the war in Iran, or can we?
Yeah, well, I think an earlier conversation we had, Tim, we were sort of looking at the two possibilities of this carrying on and going into escalation, or whether Trump would just kind of declare victory and leave. And he seems to be managing to do both at the same time, which is interesting. The Truth Social posts are weird. I see Marjorie Taylor Greene, a former ally, has decried Trump's madness. But I think, underlying all of this, a kind of frustration that Trump has, I think, really comes back to something I remember from Robert McNamara, who during a discussion he had of really when he apologized for Vietnam, basically. And one of the things he talked about there is saying you can't win unless you empathize with your enemy. You have to understand your enemy. You have to get into your head. You have to empathize with them. And he says we failed to do that in Vietnam, and that's why we lost. I think the problem we're facing here is Trump and Hegseth don't have the ability to empathize with anybody, and certainly not with the enemy. They just don't know. They don't know what they're doing because they're unable to know what the other side is doing. And so this is leading to this sort of chaos that we're seeing here, and eventually to expletives.
Indeed. Let me come at this from the other newsmaking angle over the weekend related to the U.S. military. So you would know better than I that the U.S. military would always have a standing plan for something related to Iran, whether it be a response to an attack or an invasion. But what is happening is a lot of U.S. military leadership has been or continues to be removed from leadership positions because they're challenging the Secretary of Defense, or Secretary of War, as he calls him, Pete Hegseth, and Donald Trump. How concerning ought that to be, Luke? I'm not trying to be hysterical here, but these are military professionals who are charged with waging war and keeping peace. But if they're removed from their positions of leadership because they're offering resistance to political plans of action that are drawn forward, that has to be concerning, does it not?
It does indeed. I mean, we've talked about this in general terms before. I mean, the problem that the Trump administration is chosen for loyalty, and that's about it. But I think, this is why the Straits of Hormuz problem we're having now happened. I mean, the United States United States military have war-gamed and done simulations over issues around the Straits of Hormuz for decades. They understand the situation, but that this knowledge was just didn't reach the level of the administration, and so mistakes were made right from the beginning, and they're continuing to make mistakes because they're not basing their military decisions on information that are provided by experts within the military and outside the military. They are basing decisions on a construction of reality based upon surrounding themselves with loyalists.
So we're in this place where even Trump now is saying a few things of concern to Canada and others. First of all, he's saying, I'm fed up with NATO. I may blow up NATO. Now, he tends to say that every 3 or 4 months, but his particular frustration with NATO is Spain didn't let him use a base. There are others who won't allow him to overfly. He's calling on NATO to help clean up the circumstances. So we have that. And we also have discussions that where the president is pushing for other nations to, go in and bring in stabilization forces. If you're Canada and you're looking at this, what do you do? You arm yourself with a 10-foot barge pole and use it to keep yourself away from that. No, exactly. And, of course, linked to that issue is certainly in an ill-planned war, the Allies understandably don't want to get involved. There's no clear plan or anything. But similarly, flipped around, it's another body blow for the Western Alliance. Coming, soon after crises over support for Ukraine and, of course, most damagingly over Greenland. So this is another body blow for the Western Alliance, and it does lead us living in countries that are formerly allied to the United States to wonder about the alliance that so much of our international politics is based on is being taken seriously by the United States. Last one for you. So is there any optimism to be found here? The global economic circumstances are rough. You look at our VOCM news today, food prices up 6% over last year, a lot of that being attributed to not just tariff troubles, but also what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz. Gas, oil prices, air travel, mortgages. Everybody's pointing at the economic strife, and that's governments also trying to avoid their own responsibilities. But is the fact that there are so many poor economic indicators potentially a helpful thing in getting Trump to back off? Because often it is the stock market and the cost of goods that seems to bring forward retreats from the president.
Yeah, exactly. He gets mugged by reality, basically, and the administration gets then changes course, and we get the whole taco Trump always chickens out. Well, I think really it's about them being kind of mugged by reality. But yeah, I think a lot of good can come out of a crisis if people can learn the lessons from this, and one potential lesson coming through this and then being linked up perhaps as well by results in the midterms is for the U.S. and U.S. authorities to realize that the truth that the military weapon is a very blunt instrument, and you can start wars when you like, but you can't end them when you like. Yes. I mean, relearning the lessons of Vietnam. So if that kind of learning process goes through the political system and is linked up with changes at the midterms, then yes, some positive can come out of this crisis.
Yeah, let's hope so, because it is it's obviously terrible for the people in the region, but it is affecting the entirety of the world. Luke, appreciate the time. Thank you for joining us today.
Yes, no problem at all.
All right, that is Dr. Luke Ashworth, Memorial University international politics professor. I have never seen a president comport himself like this. I feel like I say that all the time. Perhaps he speaks to the rawness in all of us, but it is very, very concerning. That's my little editorial. All right, time for a break. When we come back, more of your calls. Back with you now. We're going to talk a little bit about Spaces Shared and what they are doing in Newfoundland and Labrador. Just as a reminder, Spaces Shared seeks to alleviate two critical challenges facing Canadians: older adults' ability to age in their own homes and remain connected to the communities, and students' ability to access safe and affordable housing near the campuses that they attend. It wasn't all that long ago that Spaces Shared signed an MOU with Memorial, CNA, and other post-secondary institutions in the province, to help address some of the housing needs that are there. And joining us to talk about that and how things are going, Rylan Kinnan, is that right, Ryland? Keenan? It looks like Kinnan.
That's correct. Well, apparently, historically, it was Keenan, but, when my family immigrated many years ago, it was turned to Kinnan. So I go by Kinnan.
All right. Well, on this day of the Easter Rebellion anniversaries, Keenan works too, but Kinnan is good. Ryland, just give us a little bit more of the face of Spaces Shared before we talk about the MOUs. I gave the bland description that is on your website, but tell us about who you are and what you're trying to do.
Well, really what we're trying to do is take a resource that exists across the country, which is spare bedrooms, and leverage them to solve a number of different challenges. Obviously, right up front, students are finding it difficult to find safe and affordable housing in the communities in which they study. But it's equally as important to us and equally as exciting to us to be able to address loneliness and isolation for older adults. And it's not just the loneliness and the isolation, it's also the ability to be able to comfortably age in their home. It's where it becomes challenging to shovel snow or rake leaves or take the garbage or recycling out or get up on a stool and change a battery in a smoke alarm. These are the things we know can become barriers for individuals that don't want to leave their communities as they age. They've got their neighbors, they've got their local shops and stores. So really, Spaces Shared is about how do we keep people in their homes for longer? How do we build these meaningful, life-changing relationships between older adults and students? And how do we address this very pesky housing crisis that we've been facing as a country for many years now?
Just one question on the loneliness, because I think it was about a year and a half ago, CBC's The House did a great exposition of the British government's Minister of Loneliness, and that they had designated somebody in that particular role, and they were talking about what they were intending to do. You guys are a private sector entity. Where did your motivation come from? Where did Spaces Shared's motivation come from? Because particularly on the loneliness piece, it's huge to address this.
It's massive. So I got the idea for Spaces Shared, I guess, about 4 years ago. I was doing a consultation on student mental health for Colleges Ontario, which represents all of the publicly funded colleges in the province of Ontario. And what I heard loud and clear through that consultation was just how challenging it was to find safe and affordable housing, and what a barrier that was to succeeding in their post-secondary studies. But I also heard again about loneliness and isolation. If you're new to a community and you have no connection there, if you can afford residence, perhaps you'll meet some other students, but you're not getting tied into the community. You're with other folks that generally are from away. They're coming to the community for the first time. And so I started to think, okay, well, if students are finding it really difficult to find safe and affordable housing, and one of the stats that I picked up is that some of the international students that we were recruiting to Canada had housing budgets as low as $400 a month, which gets you nothing anywhere in this country. I thought, how do you make it more affordable? And then I thought about the other challenge we have, which is an aging population that we are not doing a great job of taking care of, that we don't have enough resources and supports in place. And I remembered reading about Scandinavian models that match students looking for housing with older adults that have a spare room. And I thought there's got to be an opportunity to use technology to facilitate this kind of program. And out of that, Spaces Shared was born.
And thankfully you were. You've done a bunch of consultations, as I can see here, or engagement sessions, I should say. Well, they are consultations as well. We can call them that, with at different campuses across the province. How has that gone, and how are you doing in finding spaces to be shared for students?
So we're on the line today, and we're calling in because we are actually just about to do a relaunch in the province. We're taking all the lessons that we've learned, and particularly lessons that we've learned around how we built the technology. And we've completely rebuilt our technology from the ground up. We've automated a number of things. We've changed the process. We've made it much, much faster to sign up. And we also have now made it possible for hosts to start conversations with potential guests. Previously, it just used to be guests that could engage.
Okay.
So we're here because we really want to make sure that folks know about this as an opportunity that might address a need in their lives. We also are very fortunate and very much appreciate the North Pine Foundation, who has made an investment in Spaces Shared to help us grow our presence in Newfoundland and Labrador. So we've recently hired a team member on the ground, and we'll probably be growing further. But what we've heard is that it's really impactful. We've just interviewed a host and a guest on Friday, and one of the things that really stood out was the host saying, having someone in my home after my kids have all moved out and I'm living alone, it's a real sense of comfort. And then practically, she talks about the fact that her guest goes out and gets the snow off her car in the morning, shovels the walk. She says, I haven't lifted a shovel this entire winter, which is a huge win for her. So we are really looking to build on the matches that we've made. We're re-engaging with all of our post-secondary partners. And we're excited to see how this model, with our new platform, with additional resources in the province, can really grow across Newfoundland and Labrador.
So to date, have you placed any students, or as you say, you're relaunching so that it can be a more effective tool that allows you to place people?
Yep, we have placed students across the province in St. John's and Clarenville. Okay. I believe we've had some matches in Gander as well. And our relaunch initially will be focused on St. John's, but then we will be moving into other communities across the province. And really what we want folks to think about is whether this is something that could work for them. And we always like to say, you don't need to make a commitment to this forever. Some students are doing placements in communities across the province, and they just need a place to stay for 3 to 6 weeks. So that's a very kind of low commitment way to try out and see if this works. Other students might be looking for just a semester. Others may be looking for a year. But we've heard from hosts that maybe were a little reluctant when they first signed up, that it's been a great experience for them.
Okay.
And for all the reasons we talked about, companionship, assistance around the home, additional income.
That all sounds promising. Last question for you. For anybody who's just listened to our conversation, Ryan, and they want to avail of Spaces Shared, where do they go?
So they can quite simply go to www.spacesshared.ca and sign up as a host. And if anyone is particularly interested in learning more, Seniors Newfoundland and Labrador is hosting a webinar tomorrow that I will be giving that explains the process and how it works. And if anyone is interested in signing up for that, they can go to www.seniorsnl.ca/events and sign up for the Spaces Shared Tea and Talk.
All right. Well, I appreciate the time. Rylan Kinnan, CEO of Spaces Shared. Thanks for joining us today, Rylan.
Thanks so much for having me on.
All right. Take care. When we come back, we're going to talk to Gerard, who had quite a difficult ordeal that he's going to share with us. Back with Gerard after the break here on Open Line.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Our next caller, Gerard, had a moment that probably some people can relate to, and it was a tough, frustrating one and a concerning one. And he's here to tell his story. Gerard, good to have you. I gather you were in a very difficult place the other day, and you were having a mental health challenge, and you didn't get the care and support you were looking for. Tell us about that.
Hello, how are you? And greetings to the audience. To be correct, it just happened about a couple hours ago.
Oh, really? Okay, sorry.
Yes,
wow.
So I'm actually still outside the hospital waiting for a taxi to go somewhere. So what actually happened is that I called, when I was in the hotel, I called the RNC to be brought to the new Waterford, as I'll call it. Yes. So I was brought here. I was going to be admitted voluntarily. I was left all night, for most of it without proper medications I needed, sporadically, and I couldn't sleep. One thing I do require, I take melatonin. Mm-hmm. I can't sleep without it, so it was impossible, and they wouldn't give it. So I told them I had a plan to take my own life. I detailed it to them. And so finally they kind of got fed up, I guess, and said, well, you want to leave, will you go? I said, well, I want to leave because I have a plan to do away with myself. I said, okay, we'll get your paperwork. So the RCMP from my home area, to my knowledge, even phoned in and vouched to that I needed to be in. So even the word of law enforcement has no pull with mental health and addictions. It's their own entity. And it's scary when you go for help and it's not there. Why would anyone really try?
So, Gerard, I have not been to the New Waterford. Is there an intake place? I just explain. Is there? I know there's a mental health emergency room, for example, in Ontario at the Centre for Addictions and Mental Health. Does the Waterford have that? So when you went in there, what did you encounter?
Well, this is my first encounter with entering these doors.
Okay.
I came in. There's one area then that has a seating. Then there's another with seating. Then you can go in through where there's more rooms and such. So I was into seeing, a nurse, a mental health nurse. Then I saw a GP. I told him, the way it was going. I says, I know this is how it's going to go. No matter what plans, you're just going to send me at the door. As always happened in the past in St. John's in the old Waterford, to be precise. I had a plan, and I told him he shouldn't let me out. And all they did was hand me an antidepressant, which antidepressants are known to induce suicidal and homicidal tendencies in myself. That's just myself. But, here it was handed me, so I wouldn't take it. I waited some time till I had someone with me. And it hit me that bad, I had him come with me to the pharmacy. And I said to him, I cannot take this anymore. I have a bad reaction. You can ask him. His description was just as well if you gave him PCP than give him that stuff. That was his description.
So you're waiting for, how are you now? Are you still having suicidal thoughts?
Oh, of course. They just don't go away because they say you go out the door. So I'm out here, and the doctor did not care. He kind of gave a cold shoulder, and really it started really bad when I tried to show them a letter, an email that another doctor had, where I had sent a confession I was going to do something to myself again. And it basically summed up saying, sorry to hear you're homeless and that you're planning this, but there's other resources before you decide to take that route. And I found that this person never contacted any police. So I literally have been given permission, or okays, if you will, passes to self-made. Is this a new thing? It's pretty open and blatant and concerning at that matter.
And you say you had the RCMP who from
they
your
phoned
home.
in and vouched.
So what is the rationale they've given you for not admitting you or putting you in a mental health hold, if that is the appropriate term?
Well, they wouldn't certify, so it was voluntarily. So I told them I just want to go and do away with myself. He said, well, we're not going to keep you if you want to go. Well, I want to go to do away with myself. We'll get your paperwork. That was all it. So there's no more to explanation other than I wasn't pleased. I was left all night, couldn't get the medication at time and what I required. And I'm sorry, but not everyone's prescribed melatonin. You can get it off the counter. Yes, I wasn't permitted. So I know my body better than anyone else. And for someone else to tell me that I don't need something that's been helping the best, that just makes it worse. And it just shows how dark things are, that I've been going through this for so long. And so have other people. I'm not alone. But if this is not done to me, is it done to others? And we should raise more questions. How safe is it really? And the concerns of how safe the mental hospital is, they're not. I actually hurt myself while I was inside there in the bathroom. So they're not safe. There's nothing about this.
Based on what you're telling me,
I'm still out by the door.
Yeah, there's no... I
no
have dealt with my own mental health challenges, and the thing that was always very helpful to me was there was compassion and understanding. It sounds like you've received none of that.
Exactly. And the cold shoulder came quickest when I wanted to address an email I received from a doctor basically. That's when they wouldn't look at it. Neither doctor would look at it. Why wouldn't they look at it? Well, I know in my head, but that's just it. So either way, the sums up to I had a plan. They're okay to send me out. That's it. There's no more of okay to it. There's no application, apparently.
So can you go to, do you think you should go to maybe St. Clair's or the Health Sciences and get other treatment?
I wish the Health Sciences where I am at, that's the new Waterford, as you would call it.
Okay.
So that's where they brought me. So I've actually not allowed any mental health services. Like, they've had to list me as dangerous is what they've done. But yet I have no record, and my only diagnosis is OCD and PTSD. So, and I did go through a period where I was misdiagnosed as schizoaffective.
Yes, which is not unusual in the mental health journey. It's not unusual at all.
Of course, I went through those restrictions in that area, what I had to obey, and this is not held now. So here's what's unique. I have no record, and I'm listed as dangerous by mental health services. So the real question, if someone is actually listed dangerous, I don't consider myself that. I suppose we all have the ability in defending ourselves or choose to be malice. But if someone's listed as that and there's no precautions, who else is it done to? And who would it be that wouldn't be wise enough or brave enough or have any ability to phone in and communicate this to speak up? Like, I literally don't feel I have anything to lose with no mental health care. I was literally given an okay at the door because that was the reason, and that's what other people go through.
Well, look,
and there's nowhere to go about it.
Well, I'm glad you've called. I'm glad you've called us. Certainly a large voice here, and I hope people in the hospital are listening. I hope the appropriate authorities are listening and they can help you. And probably seems trite, but it's not. As somebody who's struggled and suffered before, there's always something to live for, even if you've had the most horrific experience. Is there anything we can do for you, Gerard?
I don't know. Maybe there's someone out there that would have a position and actually be concerned to inquire what this is going on, if I'm the only case, or what is the real story behind this. But either way, I've been clear that, I've been given basically a pass to commit suicide without people contacting areas, and I've checked on it. And just then, to be clear, because I had to plan, we'll get your papers, there's no more permission you need to commit suicide. So unless there's something new in all this, we need to know as a public if this is made as over with and you can just do it yourself as long as the doctor says it. We really do need to know the rules and regulations of the people, and whatever they are, they need to be upheld. If not, we're all just some sort of criminal.
Well, certainly there are lots of rules. It sounds like as you've described it, not been given the care that you want. I hope there are people listening in the hospital who will come outside and bring you in. We will make a call over there and keep your life, man. Preserve your life. It's important. You're helping others by making this call today. Stand by. We'll see if we can get you some help. All right?
Thank you. It's not simply about living anymore. It's about a life worth living.
I agree, and you are making a case very well for that because the advocacy you're doing could help others. Thank you, Gerard.
Thank you very much. You all take care and stay safe, please.
Okay, take care. Bye. All right, I hope somebody in the hospital was listening. I'll ask Dave to call over there and see if we can get somebody to help Gerard. Look, I'm not a mental health professional. I can relate to some of the struggles that Gerard is talking about, but if, as Gerard has told it, the reception he got just doesn't seem right. There's clearly more to the story, but could somebody please help that man? All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll talk to Rick about mail service. Welcome back. Last few minutes of the program. We're seeing if we can get Gerard some help, but let's talk to Rick on line one. Rick, are you there?
Yes. Good morning. I was just wondering if there's any mail service out today, if you know it.
Pardon, sir?
If there's any mail service today.
Federal holiday, I don't know because banks are open. I don't know if the mail, let me just check. Why, are you waiting for something?
Yes, 2 weeks.
2 weeks. I can tell you whether it's on or not. It doesn't work very fast in Canada at the moment. Hang on. And so what you've been waiting for 2 weeks. Where's it coming from?
It's the CRA.
Oh, well, geez, you can wait a while. No, Rick, according to what I am reading, Canada Post does not deliver mail or packages on Easter Monday, as it is a federal statutory holiday. So you're going to have to wait another day at least for all of that.
Thanks. I guess I'm going to give him a job with the Mail Post Office.
Maybe so. Have you tried? Can they send what they're sending online? No. Or another way?
No. The person that done it for me forgot to put it on direct deposit.
Oh, okay. So you're waiting for a check then. All right. That's your business, not ours. But
sent out 2 weeks ago.
Sent from where?
I guess CRA, wherever they send it from, Ottawa, I guess.
Yeah, it depends on where they send the checks. All right. Anything else you want to talk about, Rick?
No, perfect. Thank you for all the help.
You are welcome. That is
have a great day.
You too. Yeah, it is a weird kind of holiday because banks are open, but the federal government is shut. The provincial government is shut. We are working, and others are working, usually on federal holidays. Their regulated industries are shut down. But there you have it. Any other questions related to service that I can Google for you? Because you can't. I'm happy to help, Rick, but you can find this.
No, that's perfect. Thanks very much. Have a great day.
All right, Rick. I didn't realize you were still there. There you go. All right. Thank you, Rick. I hope Rick gets his check. That's pretty important stuff. A few minutes left in the show. Got time for one or two more calls. I was negligent earlier, by the way, when was talking about Scott Oak, the stepping down. The other person who announced he was stepping down was Vic Rauter. And Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, particularly curling fans, will know Vic. He has been the voice of curling in Canada for a very, very long time, and was most recently in Newfoundland and Labrador, of course, for the Brier. I think I read he said 53 years in broadcasting. He started when he was 19. He's now 72. He's covered the Blue Jays, the many NHL teams, but it's curling that has been so much part of our fabric and his voice. There was a wonderful statement that Brad Guzhu put out, and I'll see if I can find it here, about Vic Rauter. When Vic announced his retirement, in which he talked about, particularly as it related to winning the Brier at home, let me see. Here it is. I have it here. Vic Rauter, or he's from Aurelia. Let me get it for a second. I'm digging that up for you. But anyway, Vic Rauter, big voice of curling, and he's gone too. He and Scott Oak. Legendary curler Brad Guzhu said he still gets chills when he re-watches Rauter's call of his famous shot to win the Canadian title in 2017. He really did a very good job of explaining the moment, explaining what was going on in the building, Guzhu told the CBC, and he built it up even before I stepped in the hack, like it was just a professional job. Not everybody can step in there and do what Vic did. Sometimes when you're just talking on TV, people think it's easy, but it only looks easy because he's so good. Curling Canada said this about Vic Rauter. We all have mixed emotions. We're sad that he won't be around to make the final after the season, but we are happy for him as he moves into retirement after a brilliant, iconic career. He's been the voice of curling in Canada and around the world for more than 40 years, and it's a privilege to be a part of it with Vic and ensure and the entire TSN team. And that was, of course, from Curling Canada. They have a deal with TSN. All right, that seems to be our show for the day. We are going to, a couple of things I'm going to follow for you tomorrow. We're going to try and get Forestry Minister Pleeman Forsey on to get some understanding and more context on this issue of clear cutting in and around Port Blandford. What is happening? We had a number of calls today from the Port Blandford area from people who are very concerned about this. We did also have a call from Dennis, who offered the perspective that there's a little bit more to the story, as is often the case, and that we need to dig into this. So we'll try and get Pleeman Forsey on. As I say, it's a provincial government holiday today, so many of the ministers and MHAs, I should say, are having well-deserved days off. We'll see if we can also get someone from the Department of Health on to talk about two things that we discussed today. We discussed the story in the Telegram about the mental health advocate and the desire that some have to see that person there, given that the mental health advocate role is currently in some part under the auspices of the disability advocate. So we'll see if we can pursue that with the provincial government and whether they have a particular view on that. Are they prepared to put forward another advocate's role? You heard Dr. Janine Hubbard saying she was kind of mixed on what it might mean. Would it help when there are other, could it help, I should say, when there are other challenges there? We're also, see if we can do a little bit more digging into the call we just had that I think is weighing heavy on many of you who heard it, certainly weighing heavily on Dave and I. Gerard expressed the challenges he's having. Obviously, he's given us his perspective, and he says he's having suicidal ideation. We're trying to help him right now, just so you know. How is that normally handled at the health sciences / the new Waterford Mental Health Facility? I think that is something we need to understand. Look, there are always more elements to the story. I don't want to rush to quick judgment, but based on what was provided to us by Gerard, it seems concerning that he is openly questioning whether he wants to live and how that is being addressed as he is describing it is concerning. So we'll stay on top of that. We'll keep following all that is happening with the cost of things. It is very concerning. You will see we have an online poll. Some Canadian airlines have made the move to add fuel service charges to your bookings. Does that affect your travel plans? Well, there is another impediment potentially for people who are going to travel this summer and spring off, and Newfoundlanders and Labradorians were very able and willing and often wanting to travel away. So we'll watch that. We'll watch the weather. The weather, of course, some system likely coming in on Wednesday, according to the weather office. So we'll pay attention to that and so much more. Price of food, mortgages, all of that will be on our agenda as we go forward. I think Greg is sitting in for me this afternoon, or Ricky, on the Tim Powers Show. So have a listen. The guys will follow up with all that is going on today. Back tomorrow with more.